Making the support structure for billboards involves building three assemblies: the face and frame, the legs, and the boardwalk. Making the decals was pretty easy, but this part is a bit harder, so be patient. Let's start with the face and frame. To make a face frame, cut out the decal you wish to use. Also, cut two pieces of evergreen 8210 about 4 inches long. Lay the decal on a cutting surface with the two pieces of 8210 on the top. This is the height of the face frame you need to hold both the decal and the frame. Lay a straight edge on the top and scribe a straight line, or half a dozen lines, across a piece of evergreen 9040 and snap it off. Similarly, place the two pieces of evergreen 8210 on the side of the decal. This marks the length of evergreen 9040 needed to contain the decal and the frame. Using a straight edge, scribe a line and snap it off. You could use evergreen 9030 and even 9020, which are progressively thinner and less expensive, but I appreciate the additional heft and am willing to pay the price. Your decision. Now it is time to build the frame, and we will use a chopper razor blade type cutter or equivalent and some more evergreen number 8210 strips to cut out our parts. Since we just cut the face, I recommend that we place the top of the face frame in the chopper and bring up a stop to set the size of the cut. I cut pieces of brass to serve as stops for right angle cuts, as they are smaller than the triangular stops from Northwest Shortline and easier to use. Cut two pieces to become the top and bottom of the frame, and three more to be used eventually for the boardwalk. While you are at it, cut 4 pieces of evergreen 8206 for eventual use as back stiffeners. Similarly, rotate the face and cut 2 pieces of 8210 to frame the left and right sides. Set aside 3 pieces of 8210 and all 4 pieces of 8206. Now, miter the remaining 4 pieces of 8210 at 45 degrees, being careful not to snip off too much of the length. Glue the left frame piece to the face, then the top and bottom, and finally the right frame piece. Test fit the decal into the frame and trim if needed. I usually use Plastruct plastic weld or Plastruct Bondene glue, but other fast-drying, brush-applied glues will work. Plastic weld has a bit more working time and totally cures in 24 hours, and Bondene sets up faster and cures faster. You don't need to be ultra careful with the gluing, as painting will cover a lot of sins. Now, flip the face frame assembly face down, and let's glue some stiffeners to the back for visual interest. In the previous step, we cut 4 pieces of evergreen 8206, but something larger or smaller could be substituted. I space them evenly, parallel to the long side of the frame. Now let's go to the boardwalk. Earlier we cut 3 pieces of evergreen 8210 for this purpose. I use a small fixture to line the 3 pieces parallel, apply some masking tape over all 3 of them, and then use the tape to remove the strips from the fixture. About every inch or so, I glue some evergreen 8104 crosswise to brace the main pieces. I then remove the tape and allow the assembly to dry. Once dry, I nip off any excess length of the cross braces. Finally, we need to create several supports to hold the frame and boardwalk. Our supports will have 4 parts: a vertical leg, a slanted leg, a cross member, and a diagonal support, all constructed from evergreen 164. Here you may want to diverge from my suggestions. Evergreen 164 is approximately 8 by 8 inches in HO scale, and you may feel that such a piece is a bit larger than prototypical. The billboard frames from Walthers are indeed a bit thinner. But for my eye and fat fingers, 164 is more pleasing and easier to work with. Again, your decision. If you end up wanting to make a lot of signs, you may want to order Evergreen 164 in bulk as part number 6164 directly from the manufacturer at http://evergreenscalemodels.com. They're good folks. To assemble the supports, I created a leg assembly fixture out of ultra-high molecular weight polyethylene, or UHMW for short. UHMW is a very slippery plastic and little sticks to it well, thus making it ideal for an assembly fixture since our glue or glued parts won't stick easily. Yes, you could make an assembly fixture from some other material, but UHMW is ideal, easily obtainable, and well worth it. I will describe how to make this fixture in the final part of this tutorial, but for now, note that I will be using one fixture to glue the vertical and slanted legs at a 30-degree angle, and will then glue the legs to the cross members at a 90-degree angle to the vertical leg, rendering it a horizontal support for the boardwalk. Finally, I will glue the diagonal supports at 60 degrees. Why 30 and 60 degrees? Because I can cut these angles easily on the chopper and they look good. Walthers uses these angles for their billboards, so if it is good enough for them, it is good enough for me. So now it is time to cut the legs. But how long? This depends on the height of your face frame and how tall you wish the billboard to be above the ground. In an earlier tutorial, I suggested that a small set of standard billboard heights be used, and stated that an 8-foot HO scale billboard would translate into 1.10 inches of height. I also recommended a frame around the decal, adding an additional 0.28 inches of height to the final face frame. Now, if we wanted to make the billboard appear 8 feet above the ground, we would have to add the height of the face frame, 1.38 inches, to the height of the legs below the face frame, another 1.10 inches, for a total of 2.48 inches. Additionally, I like to add another scale foot, or 0.14 inches actual, to create an open toe gap area between the face frame and the boardwalk, for a total height of 19 scale feet, or 2.62 inches. But that's just me. If you want taller or shorter legs, make your decisions and cut some suitable length styrene for the vertical legs. How many? I tend to take the length of the face assembly, round it up to the next higher whole number, and cut that many leg sets. Thus, if the face frame assembly is between 3 and 4 inches, I use 4 leg sets. If it's between 2 and 3, I use 3 sets. But how long should the diagonal leg be? And you thought you would never use your high school trigonometry. The ratio of the adjacent side to the hypotenuse of a 30-degree angle of a 30-60-90 triangle is the cosine of 30 degrees, or 0.866. Thus, the diagonal for the support will be the length of the vertical leg divided by 0.866, or 3.02 inches. If you decide to make your legs shorter or longer, alter them accordingly. The spreadsheet also contains values for the length of the cross member, the diagonal support, and how far the cross member should be from the top or the bottom of the alignment fixture. Now that we know how long the leg should be, we can cut some styrene, right? Not so fast. If you think you might ever want to create another billboard to these dimensions, stop and make a gauge block. What is a gauge block? It is a piece of dimensionally stable material, such as brass, UHMW, or corian, cut to the exact length of the desired part. The gauge block is then used to set the distance of a chopper's blade to its stop block. You never again have to try to measure the distance to place the stop block from the blade. You just place the gauge block on the chopper, slide the stop block over, and forget about it. So, rough cut a piece of material. I use 3mm square brass rod, a bit over length, and gently file or sand off the end until it is the proper length. Make a gauge block for both the vertical leg, the sloped leg, the cross member, and the diagonal support. If you plan on making more billboards than just one size, make a set of gauge blocks for each size. Yes, it's work. Just do it. You can thank me later. Now, using the gauge block, cut the vertical leg to size. Using the sloped gauge block, cut a sloped leg to about 1/4 inch over size, miter one end, and then cut the other end to size with a 90-degree cut. The sloped end will not be perfectly flat to the ground, and that never bothered me, but if it bothers you, chop off the angle with your hobby knife. The result will be a perfectly vertical billboard, which after final assembly may be a bit unstable on your layout. You may want to nip off 1/8 of an inch to 1/4 inch from the sloped leg to make it more stable. Initially, I wanted a vertical board, but more recently have gone for something more stable. Be advised. Now let's glue the two legs together. I first place a dab of glue on the mitered edge of the sloped piece and place it in the fixture. Then I place a dab of glue on the end of the vertical piece and place it into the fixture, such that the top of each piece meet at the top of the fixture. The slots in the fixture are about 1/100 of an inch wider than the styrene, so I carefully wedge my hobby knife blade between the outside edge of the legs and the fixture, so that the legs have a good close fit, and I wait 15 to 20 seconds for the joint to set. I then put the point of my hobby knife under the joint and pop it out of the fixture and set it aside to cure, which takes about 2 to 24 hours. Don't rush the cure time. While waiting for the two legs to cure, cut the cross member. The length of the cross member will be a function of the height of the face frame assembly. The taller the sign, the longer the cross member. I'll spare you the trigonometry, but my fixtures require that the cross member be 1.42, 1.62, 1.75, 1.93, and 2.06 inches respectively for 8, 10, 12, 14, and 16-foot high billboards. These lengths are not critical, so feel free to cut these a bit longer if you like. Using a gauge block to set the length, cut some evergreen 1/64 styrene about 1/4 inch longer than recommended, miter a 60-degree angle, and cut it to the recommended length. Similarly, use your gauge block to set up the cut for the diagonal cross brace, 0.86 inches, 1.10, 1.25, 1.42, and 1.62 inches. Cut oversize, cut a 60-degree angle, square off the end to the proper length. No approximations here. Now that the two legs have cured, place the cross member in the fixture, making sure that the angled end is facing properly in the proper slot of the fixture. For an 8-foot face frame, use the shortest slot. For a 16-foot face frame, use the longest slot. You will notice that the cross member slots are deeper than the leg slots. This is so that after placing the cross member in the fixture, you can apply a dab of glue where the cross member intersects the legs, then reinsert the legs into the fixture and press the pieces together, and the fixture will hold all three pieces in place. Wait 15 to 20 seconds for the pieces to bond, and then use a hobby knife to pry the pieces from the fixture. Wait a few hours for these pieces to cure. Before gluing the diagonal support, note that the square cut end of the diagonal brace will attach to the sloped leg and the mitered end to the vertical leg, so rotate the diagonal support until they fit. The diagonal support is in the same plane as the two legs, so don't try to glue it to the cross member. It might help to put the three-piece assembly on a piece of glass, legs on the flat surface and cross member above, then slide the glued ends of the diagonal support in place. Now, rough cut, miter, and final cut the diagonal support and glue it into place. Wait overnight for the assembly to cure. Once the new day dawns, Make sure the area where the sloped leg meets the crossmember and the diagonal support is flat. If not, take a file or sandpaper and flatten it. Now it is time to attach the legs to the face frame. Don't try to attach the legs to the frame assembly without first placing a piece of ultra-high molecular weight or even wood on your tabletop, so that the crossmember, the thing that will eventually hold the boardwalk, has some place to drape while gluing the legs. I like to place the legs about an inch apart. Take your time with them, but faster setting glue like Plastruct Bonding might make it easier than longer setting glue. Do your best to keep the legs perpendicular to the frame assembly. Short, inch-wide pieces of UHMW between the legs will make this easier. The legs will start to set in 15 to 60 seconds, but if you can, give the joint 15 minutes or so before gluing the next leg to give the joint some brief time to set up. Alternately, and while not absolutely essential, I made an assembly fixture to assist in this task, and it helped a lot. Before gluing the boardwalk, place the face frame into the large slot of the fixture, face down. Line it up so the legs are equally spaced across the long side of the face frame, and that the top of the face frame is aligned with the top of the leg assembly. Take a leg assembly and glue the top part with plastic weld. Insert the crossmember into the hole between the two pieces of the fixture and press the top part of the leg into the sign and the bottom part into the long slot. Hold for 20 seconds and go on to the next leg set. Once all the legs are attached, cut a piece of evergreen 144 wide enough to span all the legs and glue it to the sloped legs at the intersection of all the joints to serve as a brace for all the legs. Once dry, trim off the excess. Set the assembly on its legs and glue the boardwalk to the crossmember. If desired, trim the legs to make a shorter sign. A straight edge might be useful to minimize the sign's wobble. Paint the entire structure. Since glue does not adhere well to a painted surface, make sure all parts are firmly attached before painting. I prefer flat colors over glossy, and I often try to make the colors of the structure complementary to the colors in the decal. Spray paints worked for me, and I always give 2 coats to both the front and back. Apply the decal. My experience is that about 20 seconds in the water is all it takes to loosen the decal from the backing paper. Once dry, and if desired, spray the whole thing with dull coat. Place the sign on your layout and enjoy. Now, if you are interested in making fixtures similar to mine, open the final module in the tutorial, Building Fixtures.